You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Excited to start the week with you off right. We are going to kick things off today with 3 of the most powerful and empowering questions you can ask yourself from none other than Tony Robbins. So Tony Robbins is someone that I admire for not only his ability to inspire everyone out there, or at least a lot of people out there, but also his longevity within the industry. I mean, what he does works, and although his voice might not be the right voice for everyone, I believe that he has a lot of wisdom to offer, especially now that he's been doing this for, let's say, 30 years, maybe even 40 years. So what I want to do, though, is bring to you 3 of his more empowering questions that if you're struggling in life, if you're dealing with any type of hardship, you begin to ask yourself these 3 questions. And the reason that these came up specifically for today's show is that I just spent 3 days in Miami, Florida with my executive team from Equilibrium Nutrition. Amazing people that I got to spend some time with, where we got to map out our 2020 plan for the company. This allows us to have a bigger vision. I present what I would like to do, but it's not just me. I have experts that are well and far above where I am in terms of their given field. We have our web team. We have our messaging and branding team. We have our operations. We have our health coaching and medical director division. We have all of these different parts of the company where we have brilliant people at the helm and really running those. And so our job is to say, okay, we are going to continue to grow, but as we grow, how do we maintain, because that's such a big thing, how do we maintain our efficacy? And how do we maintain the relationships that we have with all of the people that we're able to touch their lives all over the world, because we don't want to lose that. So we are a small company, started as a small company, and as we're growing into this global leader in functional medicine, how do we maintain that while still growing and servicing all the needs of the people out there who want functional medicine lab testing and proven functional medicine wellness-based protocols, weight loss protocols, and anti-aging. So that's always been a goal of mine, is how do I bring my offline Boston practice to the entire world? You know, I was doing 20,000 appointments a year, and I was able to help a lot of people in the Boston-based area. And of course, we had people fly in from all over the world, and I would work with them over Skype as well. But that was great, and I wanted that. But I also said, I know that what I'm doing is working. I know that because I can see it in an everyday practice. I can back it up with the research, but also that it's been done for many thousands of years. I did not invent a lot of this work. I need to be able to share this message with more practitioners, which is why we opened up IHP. But I also need to be able to share this message through podcasting, which is free to as many people in the world as possible. But along that journey, I just want you to know, and I want to be really honest with you in today's podcast, there has been a lot of ups and downs. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of work, and there's sometimes a good amount of stress that goes into it. So as I'm moving forward and as we are continuing to grow, we have to ask ourselves these same questions. And the first question that Tony Robbins poses for us is, what are you focusing on? Because as you grow, I'm talking about a company today, but I'm telling you right now, it is absolutely in alignment with you as a human being. As you grow anything, an organization, a company, a movement, or yourself, you begin to hit barriers that you've never experienced before. You have to overcome obstacles. And you have to figure out and ask yourself, what are you focusing on? Because you can focus on all the hardships that you're going through. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we could focus on, well, what if we run out of inventory? We could focus on, well, what if this lab no longer continues to run this lab test. Or we could focus on any number of things we could focus on. What if this manufacturer runs out of that ingredient? So there are so many things that you can focus on, but you have to figure it out for yourself what you are going to be most dedicated and passionate about. So for example, outside of the business-based realm, if you are someone that wants to lose the weight and get in the best shape of your life, you can focus on the fact that you haven't been able to do that before, or it's been many, many years since you've kept the weight off, or that everyone around you seems to be able to lose the weight, but you can't. Now, you could focus on that. Or you could focus on something a bit more positive. You could focus on a new way to lose weight or boost your metabolism that you haven't heard of before. That is what could be the catalyst for change. That could have been what you've been missing all along, whether it's through thermogenesis, balancing estrogen levels, lowering cortisol levels, improving your deep sleep quality, getting more micronutrients in your body, balancing blood sugar, or improving overall thyroid. Any one of those, and many more, could be the answer that you're looking for. But again, all of us, and it's the way that our brains are wired, are focused on what the greatest hardship or struggle is. Because we figure if we focus on the struggle, well, that's going to keep us vigilant. And if we're vigilant, well, then nothing's going to sneak up on us. Nothing's going to attack us without us being aware. But the problem is that over time, what you focus on, you get more of. And I've spoken about this before. And it's extremely important to remember that what you focus on grows. And if you're always focused on dis-ease in life, or dis-ease in your body, or dis-ease in your weight, you're most likely going to get more of that dis-ease. And by that I mean you're not going to be happy with where you are. And part of that is that you become attached to the struggle. And I've been there myself. There's no doubt about that. I could not see a way out. And because I could not see a way out, all I focused on was how sick I was, how stressed I was, or how it wasn't fair that I was in this position and it seemed like nobody else was, or at least not at that age. And that's what I focused on. I was definitely feeling and playing the victim-based role. And I feel like I was entitled to that. I absolutely felt I was entitled to it. I felt I was a victim to my disease. Why did I get it? I wasn't doing anything different in my life than anybody else. Yet I was the one at 17 years old who got extremely sick. And I was the one that was taken out of a lot of things that I loved, like sports, etc., at that young age. So I could have complained and I could have focused on that. And to be honest, I did. And for quite some time. And every time I focused on it, I would get typically worse and worse. So one of the things I like to tell people is not to forget about it. Don't pretend you're not in the situation that you're in. Don't pretend that at all. But what could I have done in that situation? Well, I could have focused on trying to find a new practitioner, trying to find something else, reading a new book, doing something that would allow me to be more focused on healing rather than the current state I was in. And that is absolutely what I want for you. So with Equilibrium Nutrition, as I bring it back and forth to my meetings in Miami, we are absolutely focused on not only the struggles that we go through as a growing company, where we're adding, many new employees every single month, and we're ramping up our customer service and always trying to find new and better ways to be able to get our products to more countries all around the world, get them there faster, get them there less expensively. Like, we're always trying to do those things because we understand the power behind what we're doing. We understand the power behind functional medicine. And I realized this again 20 years ago when I started meeting with my first functional medicine-based doctors. So that's absolutely what I'm trying to pass on to you and what I want you to know for yourself. So the big question is, what are you focusing on right now that's either good or bad that you need to either let go from your life or attach yourself to? So the big thing is, again, if you're struggling to lose the weight, don't focus on never having been able to lose the weight. Instead, focus on what is it that you can do tomorrow that will hopefully enable you to find a new path or take a new path to be able to drop those extra pounds for health-based reasons. All right, the next question is this. After asking yourself, what are you focusing on right now? We need to ask, what does that mean? So when Tony Robbins speaks about this, he says, what does it mean what we're focusing on? Meaning, are we even asking the right questions? Yes, it's a positive or negative, but what does it mean? So if we're focused on, for example, going back to Equilibrium Nutrition, trying to find new ways to get into other countries like Japan. What does that mean? Like, what are we focusing on? Well, it goes back to this. Here's what it means. We have hardships. We're in an uncomfortable position, not because we're doing anything wrong or anything's bad, but it's actually we're trying to push the boundaries of what's ever been done. And so when you're doing things in your own life as well, if you're a bit uncomfortable, if you're a bit unsure, you have a little bit of anxiety or overwhelm, it may not be that you're doing anything wrong at all. It could simply be that you are moving into the next evolution of yourself. So as you begin to take on new tasks, as you say to yourself, maybe I want a career change. Maybe I want to travel. Maybe I want to move across the country, whatever it might be. You might say to yourself, these are things that I want, but I'm overwhelmed. I'm anxious about it. And you're focusing on all the bad things that may happen, right? Because you can absolutely focus on two things, the bad things that could happen or the good that's on the other side of it. Now, again, our brain brings us back to all of the bad things that may happen because that's a survival-based instinct. But what I want to say is, what does that mean? Well, when you go back to that, let's just say you're going to travel from, let's say, Boston to California. That's where you're going to live. And you're moving a 6-hour plane flight away. You know, all the negatives that you could focus on. But here's what it means, though. When you're looking at it, you're up against these struggles and these challenges because you're doing something great or something that you've always wanted to do or something that you feel like you're destined to do, that you're passionate about. And then that's what that means. It's not necessarily a negative. It's just that you've never done this before, that this is the next chapter in your life. And so I want you to think about that in terms of your relationships, your finances, your health, your body, in terms of body transformation, your spirituality. You're going to come up against certain issues in life that begin to make you question if you're on the right path. Those questions are not bad. You want to answer those questions to make sure that you are assured enough in yourself so that you'll be able to take the proper actions to be able to continue to move forward on your journey. But that does not mean that you're off track. It absolutely does not mean you're off track. And the third question that Tony Robbins brings up is this: what am I going to do? So after you've gone over what you're focusing on, like what's going on right now in my life? What am I focused on? Am I focused on too much of the negative, or am I focused on what I can be doing in life? And then what does that mean? Am I focused on, okay, or thinking about what now does all of this mean in the grand scheme of things? Oh, okay, here's why I'm uncomfortable. Because I'm trying to do things that I've never done before. I'm trying to do things that a company's never done before. And I'm trying to push myself to a place that my family's never been, friends have never been, that you don't have an actual map. You don't have a guide to guide you on, right? To move you forward. But you're going to do this because you know it's what you're meant to do, that it's part of your destiny. So now you ask yourself, what am I going to do? And that's a crucial question, because when people begin to become overwhelmed or anxious, they do one of two things. And the more typical is this: they start to shrink back to who they've always been and move into their comfort zone. Even if they're uncomfortable, they move back into a place of comfort, which simply means this: it's what they know. So if this is what they know how to deal with it. Even if it's not a good thing, they know how to deal with the current relationship. They know how to deal with their current work. They know how to deal with their current location in life. They know how to deal with their current health or their current spirituality. They've been through it before. It's not great, but they know how to make it through the day. That is what holds so many people back. But there's another scenario. And the other scenario is this: that you already know what you need to focus on. You know what it means for you in your life. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to say, I'm not going to ignore all the negatives or all the possibilities that could happen. I'm going to try to come up with contingency plans around those. And that's what we do, right? Contingency plans around what happens if an ingredient is out of stock. Contingency plans with what if this lab no longer carries that lab anymore. We come up with contingency plans. So we feel comfortable that if those things ever happen, we've got a great plan in place. It's going to be taken care of. We'll cross that when we get to it if needed. But the bigger focus is this: we are now going to move forward with exactly what we want to do, because we know, not that we won't see some obstacles along our way, for sure we will, many of which we don't even know. But what we're more focused on and what we're going to do is push forward to give our life meaning, because that's really what it's all about. It is giving what we do in this world purpose and meaning. It's making feel like that what you did today matters. That you can look back at the end of each day, whether it's massively significant or not so significant, but that it mattered. That you did something, maybe for the greater world, or maybe for yourself, your family, that made a difference. And we start to get enough of those days start to add up. We feel like we do have purpose. We feel like we do have meaning. And when we talk about happiness, you'll be able to derive a lot of your happiness from feeling like your life matters. That you're doing something that isn't the norm. That you're just not coasting through life. I know a lot of people like to they say, oh, I just want to retire to a deserted island and pina coladas on the beach. But I just don't think that most people would want that after about 6 months or so. Maybe some people would. That's okay. That's all right. I'm not here to judge at all. Maybe that is what you'd like. But I think a lot of people would miss the meaning that they have in their life if that's all they were doing, that they were not in some type of service to others, that they were not pushing themselves in their own boundaries. So I think when we go back to what do we want? Well, we want meaning. We want to do something that matters. We want a life that matters. And so what I want you to do is focus on what do you want out of life? And one of the best places to find that is what in your life right now is broken? What needs to change? And I always simply go back to those big five, and I want you to assess what your life is at right now, because I don't want you to try to change them all at once. I want you to look at, and this is my most important, it really is. If your health is not where it needs to be in order to carry you through your goals in anything in life, if you don't have the energy, the vitality, the zest for life, and the proper mood, you need to focus on that first. Focus on your health. And if you need to lose weight, transform your body, focus on body transformation. Because those two things will give you the vehicle, which is your body, to be able to have the energy to be able to make it through all of these obstacles. Because you absolutely need the energy. And then after that, you can focus on family and relationships, your career or finances. You can focus on a hobby that you love or spirituality, whatever it might be, whatever gives you meaning. So in closing, I'd just like to share one more story that means quite a bit to me with you. And that is when I got very sick when I was 17. As many of you know, have heard my story before. It was 2 years before I found functional medicine, that I found natural health, natural-based medicine. Before that, I was being shuffled back and forth from specialist to specialist all around Boston and the greater Boston area. And although doctors were very brilliant, they gave me no hope that I would ever recover. It was only after I found some of these functional medicine doctors, trained in looking at what the underlying root causes could be, that I started to have hope. So what I was able to do is that I realized that the knowledge was out there. I didn't yet have it, but what I could focus on now, instead of my disease or many diseases, that I could then focus on hope. I could focus on getting well. And for me, what did that mean? It meant that I was not going to have to, or hopefully not, live a life of sickness and illness and despair. That I was going to be someone that would be able to get my life back. And then what was I going to do about it? Well, I was going to invest all of my time, money, energy, anything that I could into getting well. Now that I knew that there was a plan out there, that there was a system of medicine for people like me, that I could be helped. And then I did one more thing. I said, when I figure out the answer, look at how I'm phrasing that. When I figure out the answer, I will then share that with the world. And that's what I'm able to do today. And I'm so blessed and grateful to be able to do. Now, did it take a few years for me to get there? Absolutely. But I was able to start sharing that message very early, right into my mid-20s is where I started. And then it just progressed from there. And then I was able to open my first wellness center in my early 30s. And so that was a dream come true. I remember sitting there in that waiting room saying to myself, if and when I figure out the answer to what ails me, and I figure out my answer, I will then share that with the world. And I remember that the day that I opened. So what I wanted to share with you today was this, is that so often we're faced with what seems to be insurmountable obstacles, hardships, and struggles that we just don't know how we're going to get out of it. And there's no doubt in my mind, it will happen to me in the future. It might be happening to you right now. I want you to go back to those 3 questions. What are you focused on? Are you focused on the obstacle itself? Or are you focused on what you can be doing to overcome that? And as you're overcoming it, how you're able to grow within that process and what it will mean for you going forward in your life. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.